sit as still as possible.
We do have the topic that was sent in to us.
Yeah, about the decision, wrong decision, don't make a decision.
Yeah.
We used to say, from time to time, doing nothing is making a decision.
Right. Yeah, we had a huge. We did an episode on that.
It didn't go out.
No, yeah, so we could do it again.
It seems like we sidetracked you with something too. Like
well, that was the one that that was the one that we did the Mission the Men and Me the first time.
Yeah, he hadn't read it, although it was provocative.
Yeah, people got naked in it.
Yeah, so Adam Barnett said, I'd love to hear from y'all after debating at our kitchen table the old saying, a wrong decision is better than no decision. So what point is a wrong decision actually worse than no decision at all?
He gave the good example of when it is.
Yeah, so, I wasn't sure if...
So we say the wrong decision.
But what he said was that someone made a call to turn on a positive pressure fan before water was on the fire and a crew was in the hallway.
Yeah.
So doing nothing then would have been better than doing a wrong decision.
Sure.
Yeah, this is going to go into that metric of strategy, tactics. It's early. Coffee's kicking in. I'll remember in a minute. The last one's dumb luck.
I've spent a lot of time in dumb luck.
So his question is when is a decision worse than doing nothing?
Yeah.
Although that we didn't say this.
It could be a good short one too that could turn into something because he has a point. Like just a decision making period.
I've heard people say just do something. Well, that's not necessarily the right thing.
There you go. You're completely not talking into your move it, put it over there, and put it.
Quit being so demanding, Bill. It's fine. I can hear me fine.
It's because he doesn't want to have any of that cheese Danish, which is delicious.
I had some.
He didn't, so he's grumpy.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm fat and happy. That's jolly. No. It's not grumpy. It's jolly.
This is medulla oblongata. Yeah, wasn't that from Waterboy?
Yeah.
He's made so angry because
medulla.
of this.
Why the alligator so mad?
Medulla oblongata.
No, because he got all those teeth and they got no toothbrush.
I'm going to watch that.
You're wrong,
We're doing a movie night outside tonight. Maybe that's what we'll watch.
Just like what's her name when she says,
Perusa Bulk.
I fixed your lawnmower.
I love Vicky Valancourt. Vicky Valancourt love me. They catch that big gorilla? No, Mama, they didn't catch that big gorilla.
Still on the loose. No, what you say? This search continues.
Best thing about it is the hits that he puts on people, man. It's freaking brutal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of struggle with this one, man.
Well, read it one more time, Bill.
It's just specific.
I think you get just his little middle point there, where he's just basically saying, when is a...
All right, so he says, I'd love to hear from y'all after debating at our kitchen table the old saying, a wrong decision is better than no decision. So at what point is a wrong decision actually worse than no decision at all?
So the first statement was, keep it back up, because he's really got it turned a couple of different ways. The first the first statement was,
a wrong decision is better than no decision.
So stop right there and go with just that statement.
Mm-hmm.
A wrong decision is better than no decision. I think that's...
He said that they were debating that. He's not saying that's true.
Yeah,
He's
but there's
saying,
no absolutes, and that's
that
really
was
what we're
they
getting
were debating.
into.
Yeah, we can debate that ourselves.
Right. That's what I thought we were doing.
That's why I was going with that one sentence.
But his follow-up is just the debate,
maybe
maybe
this is not a good
There's
thing
an
for us,
example.
Bill.
which is at what point, because he's already acknowledging one way and the other are not correct. It's in the middle. So where is the breakover? Where is doing nothing okay, and where is making a wrong decision the right thing?
Well, like I said, there's no absolutes.
But it's all, for me, it's all results oriented. So
I was about to say, you don't really get to dissect that until after the event.
And I'm not...
They're like, oh, shit, that didn't work.
If you remember our discussion, strong word. I don't like the results, because if you measure it on the results, okay, so you got lucky. You got good results. Do you repeat that again?
Knowing it was a wrong decision.
Knowing it was luck.
Well, but it's not all luck, right? I mean, your risk analysis wasn't luck. If you did proper risk analysis and decided that this is maybe a 60-40 proposition. You can still get lucky.
That's correct.
You can still get lucky, but a component of that was not luck.
Luck goes into a lack of thought, a lack of processing. In my mind, I'm saying luck is I'm just taking action without truly taking the time to measure out what the consequences may be or anything else. So if I go to a fire, and as I'm approaching, it's like, look, the fire's sitting right there in the living room or whatever it is, and you go, I'm not advocating it, but I'm not doing a 360 because I can grab this water can, put this fire out, this thing's done, versus going, I'm not doing a 360, I'm going to go to the front door. And there's no thought put into it. It's just there's really no strategic purpose. You just skipped a step or didn't think it through. So when I look at luck, I'm going, you are just flat out taking a shot with very little thought, if any.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not my version of luck.
Yeah.
My version of luck is that you go into it not able to assure a good outcome.
Right.
And you just happen to get a good outcome, and you've done a lot to get it to a good outcome, but you can't get it 100% of the way there.
That's where I was going. And the situation that comes to mind was an actual situation for me. And it was a hazmat situation where I was like, I don't know if this is, I think it's the right thing to do, but we're kind of getting limited on choices and we're getting short on time here. I hope this works.
Right.
And that's literally was like the last thing we said. Fortunately, it wasn't the last thing we said.
Right.
That's a calculated risk.
But
Right,
is it
but
the same?
If isn't any risk, aren't you? Unless you're 100% sure something's going to work, there is a component of it that you're leaving up to chance, right? If I'm 90% sure something's going to work, 10% is it might not. And if it does end up working, I don't get to take credit for that 10%. I got us 90% of the way there, but that 10% was kind of up to the universe. The floor didn't collapse on us until we were out of the building, or
we're pushing
we
into
didn't
the
run
tactic
out of
side
water.
of it. But what about just the leadership component dealing with people? Like you're fixing to deal with someone, you're thinking, I think this is the right thing to say to them.
Well, they're way more unpredictable than fire.
Definitely, you're right. Way more
I'd
dynamic.
much rather deal with a fire than a person.
Me too.
So luck is success or failure apparently brought by
That's
chance.
9 minutes and 44 seconds.
What?
Go ahead.
Is that in a movie?
No, it's the time. We went to 9 minutes and 44 seconds, and
Before
you looked something
look
up.
something up. But I appreciate you doing it.
Read it. Success.
Who got the bet? Who got the money? What'd you get? All right.
I don't know. We did a listener pool. How to look?
Yeah.
Who got lucky?
And I almost thought about, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to read it. I just keep it to myself. I couldn't help it. All right. So
I
luck.
could see you out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, "Oh my god, here we go."
I do like the definitions, though.
I am predictable. Success or failure apparently brought by chance rather than through one's own actions.
Is the definition of what?
Luck.
Luck. Read it again.
Success or failure apparently brought by chance rather than through one's own action.
Right.
So it's absent.
No, it's not all one or the other. You can be half lucky.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's put that on the shirt.
It's brought by chance
It's better to be
Right.
half
rather
lucky
than by one's
not
action.
lucky.
So 90%.
No lucky.
What I was talking about, 90% of what I did, I made sure that I had the right tools, the right training, the right everything. Tactics are good, but there's still 10%.
Those were
left
your
out.
actions. Yep. So you
10%.
took all this action and then 10% of it was just chance.
Correct. Which is kind of the whole firefighter luck discussion that we were
Right.
having before. At least that's where my head was. Maybe I didn't communicate that well enough. But that was the piece that's the whole discussion where I was saying we take credit for that 10% sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what bothers me.
Unless it doesn't go well, then it's somebody else's fault. Somebody else took that chance. If it goes right, we did it.
So
If
let's
not,
go back
full
to the
transparency.
question at hand.
Right.
He is looking at it in the results category. The sheer fact that somebody was thinking of ventilation and trying to move forward is a good thing, right?
Right.
They chose the wrong one, and we're looking at how the results of it are and how that turned out to be
So
bad.
the The ventilation was correct. The timing component of it was the piece that was not correct.
Okay.
Right, but there was an action. There was a thought in ventilation, which we do agree with. That ventilation is needed in a fire. He
Right.
just did it, and But this individual is looking at the results as a bad example of it. Well, anyone that has a negative outcome is going to be one of those bad examples. But the whole thing was the process of where they were thinking, where they were going, the strategies and tactics that they were using. Is that accurate? As opposed to doing nothing, just sitting there and watching it happen.
So I'm with Hatch on this one because
Big surprise.
Yeah, no,
I'm just kidding.
It happens every once in a blue moon, and it's only for a short period. Trust me.
Okay.
But I'm with Hatch on this one because I know it has to happen, but a lot of times we will take the outcome, start working from the outcome backwards, which is kind of unfair because you could do everything right and still end up with a bad outcome. That's why I don't like working from the outcome backwards. Ventilation, you chose. Why? The conditions dictated ventilation was needed. Okay. Did the conditions indicate that you needed that specific ventilation? Yep. We all agree that's correct. Up to that point, we're correct. And then you follow that path. Eventually, you're going to find where it went wrong, which may be you did not communicate that, and it led to these things. That's why I don't... On this particular cases, I don't like working from the end result backwards because I think it's unfair.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I'm going to turn this on you a little bit, Bill.
Yeah, because I work backwards.
I know, but if you go forward, right, and you try to work it forward, and you can kind of dissect the issues, and okay, at this point, it did go wrong or could have gone wrong or whatever, but then you get that individual that says, yeah, but it didn't.
Yeah, no, that's
It didn't.
entirely possible.
You know what I mean? And then you end up with that argument of saying, yeah, you got lucky this time.
That's it. And that's what we need to be.
You got to give luck its due then.
That you have to be able, and so I love that. We are bad.
Shane said that.
Shane did say that. And it's in my memory bank. I'm going to give you credit 3 times and then I'm owning it. But you have to give luck credit when it's due if you really want to learn what's happening in our processes, right? We very rarely give luck.
You don't think we give
its
luck?
dues.
We should give luck its dues?
I think we talked for an hour on this, and I felt like I was the only one that was arguing this point. But now we're on.
How did we turn this on you?
Well, we re-listened to the episode, and now we all believe what you
It was
said.
apparently Inception.
We were trying to
and
tell you, right.
I planted the idea.
So are we opposing our original?
I thought during that podcast that I was a little bit on the outside, but
Well,
I
I
might
mean,
have
that's-
just been
Bill
wrong
wasn't
about it.
communicating well that day.
So are we going to put luck on the passport for the accountability? I mean, is it going to actually have a writing assignment on the truck?
I think it's always there.
It's always there.
I think it's always there, and I
Wait,
think
does it? I mean, think about the tactical worksheet. Should have a luck with a circle and a question mark.
No, because then people would count on it, and that's the
they
whole
would.
problem.
No,
I'm going to
Bill,
assign you to luck.
Hope you make it.
it would go into
Good
that
chance you'll be okay.
risk metric where you go, let's give luck. This is second time, Shane, after this is mine. Let's give luck its
can have
dues. Let's give luck its dues. Where did luck play a
Okay,
factor in
but
this?
here's what I'm gonna push back a little bit on that with the
Weird.
luck. Yeah. Okay. Luck is only something that happened in the past. Luck is a historical event. Doesn't exist in the future. You can't plan on it. You can hope it happens, but until it happens, there's no such thing as luck.
Okay.
So to move forward counting on getting lucky is wrong, I think.
Ooh, but
No, but I'm not. I'm talking about.
I hope I get lucky on this.
Luck is not a strategy.
I'm not saying that that you can avoid doing that because we all do that. There's nothing that we ever do that's 100%. You're not going to say, I know. I mean, picking up a chainsaw on scene. The handle might break off when you grab it. I mean, there's nothing that's 100%.
Right. I want to go back real quick so we don't skip it because there's something that you said you like working backwards.
I do.
I think there's a time and a place dependent at what I'm looking at if I want to work from the end result backwards or if I want to start from the beginning and run it forward. Totally depends on what it is that I'm doing. There's certain things where I want to work it forward and I'm finding all sorts of stuff by moving forward towards the end goal. And then there's certain things where I go to the end goal and then start working backwards so I can figure it out. So I think that those
agree
are
with
both
that.
applicable.
And I mean, I have always worked backwards because I tend to work something backwards and get to a point where there was in a decision process, a yes or no fork in the road where I can say, especially on the stuff that got screwed up and I messed up, where in that process can I go back and say, this is where I made the wrong choice in a yes or no situation? Because that's where I know from here on out, I'm going to get to that position and I'm going to try and make the right decision. But that's my process of working back.
You know, if I was looking at a major incident, just thinking about it right now, if I'm looking at a major incident or something major that we really needed resolved to, we wanted to find the answer. So something went really sideways and now we need to take a look at this and get down to what happened. I would have a group working from the end result to the front, and I'd have another group working from the start of it.
All right, so let me give you a scenario. So a few years ago, we had a plane crash during an air show out at the
Airport.
At the airport. I was in command of. Well, I didn't want to say the airport name just in case. I was the incident commander for the event, and part of that was that some of the display airplanes were going to set fire with explosions. They were supposed to look like they were strafing an airfield. So there were these little pots of jellied gasoline all over the grass, and when they blew up, it was going to set the grass on fire, and we were going to come in and put the fire out, and then the show would keep going. And what happened, it got into the grass, the wind was blowing, and I mean, it started going, and it took us longer to put the fire out. So because of that, the coordinators of the air show didn't do what we were supposed to do, which was when they do an air show, they have a box. There's a map of the airport and there's a box, and that's the box that the performers are allowed to perform within. They're not allowed to perform over the audience. You know, they're in a box. So we're supposed to get out of that box. There's not supposed to be anything in the box. But because it was taking too much time, the controller up in the tower who was commanding the whole thing said, you guys stay where you are on the taxiway, which left us in the box. So we end up with these really great seats for the rest of the air show. Well, at least for one more performer, which was pretty cool, but the planes are flying right over you. So then after that happened, they got us off. Well, I think it's 2 performers later, the plane crashed, and literally crashed across where we had just been sitting. The plane would have hit us. So looking back on that afterward, when I did my after action report, I went back to the point where I agreed when the tower told me, you guys hold there. I said, okay. And I know that's the spot where, nope, from here on out, we will not be okay. I'll say negative. We're getting out of the...
And stick to the original plan.
But that when I examined that event, and there were other things that went wrong, but when I examined that event, that's the point when I knew I made a bad decision.
So when you examined that event, did you start from the crash and work backwards?
Yes.
Man, that is super interesting to me, because that's an event where I would start from the beginning, not from the crash. I would start from the very beginning and work it all the way through to the crash, so the crash itself wouldn't...
It wasn't the only thing that we looked at, and I'm not saying I'm not saying that's the only piece that we did wrong or that we could not do better, but for us being where we were and almost theoretically almost getting hit by an airplane, that it was my decision to say, okay, park the trucks here for a few minutes, and I knew we shouldn't, but I did it anyway. So working backwards, that's my process.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
All right. So in further of this discussion, which I'm not sure if we're actually where Adam wanted us to be, but
we rarely are.
Yeah, we really, that's kind of what we do. Colin Powell has a great quote about experience that I love. And that's, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment, because that's when you learn.
You don't think you learn?
I think you learn from good judgment too, and experience.
But we've all said your real growth is going to come when we're making mistakes.
It should come from that. But not everybody,
I'll take that.
Values that.
or learns from
And
it.
that's kind of what I was saying in my response back to that is, when is it a bad decision? I said, when you don't learn from it.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah,
if
I
you
would
were
agree
going to
with
put
that.
a period on it, yeah.
When
So
is,
did the guy
when is
that-
a mistake?
Did the guy that fired up the fan find out that it was wrong to do that? Will he not do it again?
Okay, and I hate to go back to this, but so obviously something triggered them in thinking they needed ventilation, right? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know if he knew people were in there or not, but it was a mistake. I get it. Something triggered him. So what would have happened? No fan. And he thinks it's going to flash on him, and you do nothing. You don't ventilate it. You do nothing, which is what the whole thing is to do nothing. And it flashes on him and it kills him. I'm sure the guys maybe got singed or the fire advanced on the heat or whatever, and it wasn't good. But what was the alternative? What was the alternative? If he didn't do it, what was he thinking was going to happen? And that's the whole breakover point of
So it was bad, but how much worse could it have been?
exactly.
And so this goes back to our discussion that doing nothing is an action. You can take a passive action to sit there and watch something. I'm not doing anything about it. So, with the whole ventilation thing, and I'm trying to think, okay, if I'm at that table and we're having this discussion, it just comes down to the why you didn't or why you did what you did. So he decided he was going to take ventilation, and there were people inside.
Did he know it?
Did he know people were inside? Was the error actually not on his behalf, on the behalf of somebody else? It's very quick to go, that fan sparked a flash over while people were in it. That's where I say, okay, was there any communications leading to this action needed to be taken? Was there any communication that led him to believe that there's nobody inside of this structure?
Right.
And then you start posing a bunch of questions. Okay, then why did you put a fan here knowing that there's nobody inside to put out the fire and you're injecting air into it? So
There's some jurisdictions that do that before they put anybody inside. They'll hit with like 30 seconds. They'll try and blow as much smoke and everything out of it, and that's just their tactic.
Right.
I guess it works for them, but we've talked about this before. If you feed the incident commander bad information, they're going to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
right.
Because it's what they're going off of. And so, again, it's what was the expectation that he had when he made the decision to start the fan? Was it expecting it to get smoke out? Nobody's inside. It's going to ventilate or whatever. Yeah, it may not have played out, but the whole thought process that's the part I think is better than just sitting there and like, I'm going to do nothing.
Right.
I'm not going to do anything, any action to try and make this better.
But I think doing nothing doesn't. You can have a thought process and arrive at doing nothing. It's not always that I just didn't think about it. Right? Is that what you were saying?
No.
Okay.
I'm wondering, like the question goes, it makes you wonder if this, and I'm totally speculating here, that this fire ground is sitting here going, and there's this incident commander and going, God, I got to do something. Fuck it.
Well,
Just
let's
put a PP fan up and start it up.
Let's talk. We all know Charleston. We've taught that class. Breaking the windows on the front of the store was the same thing, right?
Do you think that part of what ends up happening with us, specifically on a fire ground or during an incident, is that you have so many people with different experiences, different training, different backgrounds, right? And then all of a sudden, these decisions have to be made. But we don't have an opportunity to go, hey, get all 30 people together real quick so we can discuss taking out this window. It doesn't happen that way. So sometimes, and this, I don't want to go way down this path, but we want people to be self-thinkers, well-trained, and be self-thinkers to mitigate these incidents that you can't put into a box sometimes. And then when somebody makes a decision that is not within the box or construed to be outside of the box, and this is why I don't like the results, because it's usually based on a negative result that we go, this is a problem, that we want to go attack that, versus going, how many times did that happen, end up positively, and we were good with it, but this time that it ended up bad, who did that, and let's go after them. Right. So Charleston or any other incident like that, unfortunately, it's usually the aftermath when all the documents come out that you start looking into this person's psyche and go, oh, okay, I don't have to agree with it, but I may be able to understand his thought process and why he decided, I'm not going to sit here idle. I'm going to do this. So, yes, something has to be done. And at the same rate, we've seen incidents where they step back and say, no, Our action is going to be to watch this thing burn in place, because that action is the safest, best action. This is gone. We're going to keep all this safe around us. That in the middle, that's going to keep on burning. So
But that's still an action. I mean,
I was about to
It's
say
still
that's,
in
that's
action.
not doing nothing.
right. So
Well-
I see the whole thing as more of the being paralyzed by fear of making a decision is the doing nothing kind of thing, or making the wrong choice. And so that's kind of how I'm seeing looking at, when is, making the wrong choice and doing nothing, kind of the breakover. And I think a lot of people get into that thing of, I've seen it go through departments of, well, if I do this, I'm going to get in trouble. But it may kill somebody if you don't try and make the decision. So you can't sit there and be paralyzed by fear of what I'm about to do may not turn out right. You need to be trying to use that experience,
Right.
and that judgment to try and have the outcome that you wanted to have. That's why I said, what was the expected outcome that you were looking for? Yes, you may not have gotten to it, but at least you were moving forward trying to get a positive outlook in your head. Whereas somebody who just sits there and is like, I'm just going to let it.
Well, and
go.
it's something that we talk about sometimes in a class that Shane and I had we teach that talks about, do we get credit for intent?
Yeah, that's where I was sitting here thinking was the whole
Absolutely.
intention piece.
I don't think we get credit for intent.
Oh, I think we should, though, is what
Well,
I'm saying.
my contention, I don't know where Shane was going to go, but we know within the fire service what the intent was and why it might have worked, but the public doesn't understand any of that.
Yeah, but they get from Chicago fire and stuff. That's very blown out of realistic stuff. Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing though, is that they don't understand your intent. They never will understand your intent. The only way for them to really understand it would be to be a firefighter.
sometimes we don't understand each other's intent.
No, that's true, Shane.
No, I'm on board. I was just saying the intention
I was
thing was
daydreaming, I forget.
no. I wasn't daydreaming. I was just taking it from the point of when you're analyzing these events. I always start with intent. At some point, I'm like, what was your intention? Was your intention good, or was your intention you were just winging it at some point, or you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to. If somebody can say to me, "Listen, I was trying to do this because of," blah.
Yeah, but
Right.
how much does intent get turned around afterwards, where somebody claims that
quite a bit.
I was trying to do this,
Right.
and
Knowing good and well they
Yeah,
were just
that
doing
was-
what they
yeah.
wanted to do. We've seen that.
So if we go back to his original question and we're looking at that actual
Did
incident,
he
where
have a
something-
question?
yeah,
or a comment? There was enough in there for us to be sitting here doing this. So if
For about 30 minutes.
if you were the person that brought that positive pressure fan to the front door, people are inside, and you started it. I don't know that it necessarily be the intention as to me it would be, walk me through the entire process that put you in a place where I am grabbing this fan, bringing it to the front door, starting it up, and putting air into that building. To include what was the outcome that you thought you were going to achieve. So from the very beginning, hey, I saw this. I was told to do this. I decided to do this. People were I want to, and these are the conversations that I wish we could do more. And apparently they are doing it at the kitchen table, where you sit down and go, I want to know your thought process, because we don't all have the same thought processes. And it may be that you put a stop loss in the future where you go, listen, you were good up to the point where you decided that you were going to make a decision for the totality of that fire ground. That's where you made the mistake. You may be headed in the right direction. Hey, for these reasons, this is what I'm going to do, the other. And then when you decided, hey, I'm going to take action for myself, and no one else is involved in that process, you're on your own.
Well, you bring up a good point right there. I think we're sitting here looking at this, or I'm not going to speak for you guys, looking at this from our fire ground where there's 40 people on scene.
Correct.
But what if there's 3 people on that scene? 2 people are inside,
Right.
and there's this one guy outside trying to make a decision. He just to make this better,
Yeah.
and nobody there to stop him.
Yeah, and you're right, because we all immediately are going to frame this up based on what
Our
our
experience.
response and our
Yeah.
experiences are. And we got 40 people on a scene versus, no, we only had 6. And there's a guy outside or a gal outside that needs to make a decision on the conditions, and they feel that this is the most appropriate. And there is no, hey, do we all concur? It's literally, yep,
Okay,
I'm going to make this better.
Where that's a different scenario for us, trying to put ourselves in that position. That's the position that they work in every day.
Mm-hmm.
So aren't there things that go on in that situation where I'm assuming, but wouldn't communication between people on scene be better in that situation? Because, hopefully, because you're trying to make up for the fact that you are incredibly short-staffed, or you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Almost like when they say blind people start to hear better.
Right. Other senses are heightened by the.
Unless there's one radio.
Well, and I mean, that's.
Have you
totally
volunteered,
possible.
right, Shane?
Yeah.
Had you ever volunteered?
Yeah,
Bill?
I don't volunteer for anything.
that's not true.
He volunteers for all this stuff. All
Yeah,
the in-work.
this huge paycheck.
Everything that comes out of this podcast.
That
is
huge
because
paycheck he's
Bill
getting for this,
volunteered.
right?
Negative.
That's 100% not true.
So if I go back to the days where I was volunteering in a rural department where radios were available to most, not all, you're sharing SCBAs, you are expected to make decisions with very limited experiences and training, right? It would change a dynamic because I would say immediately it is expected of me to make these decisions and to take these actions because I don't have an entire crew to be dealing with. I drove this truck here myself. These people are taking this action. This is what I felt was best for that. So it just feeds into what you're saying, which is correct, that I'm kind of thinking of it as in I have 35, 40 people on the scene and somebody decides they're going to strike a fan up by themselves where it may very well be, no, I pulled up in this engine by myself.
Right.
And this stuff's going on, and I grabbed the PPV and brought it to the front door. And then it goes to what Hatch's point is, where it may be the normal action of the department to go, hey, vent this thing out a little bit before crews go in. So there's a lot of dynamics to it, but I think that the conversations more than anything are the most critical factor in it to go learn that person's psyche. What made him do that?
We used to do
what
it.
would the conversation look like after? So one of you is the crew and the hall, and the other's the one that struck the fan. What's that conversation look like after the fire? Because this sounds like a rational, we're going to tear it apart, but I don't think that's what actually would happen in the immediate,
No.
right?
What were you thinking? I'm sure
Exactly.
exactly what comes out of their mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing happens when you have interior crews and somebody squirts a hose line in and, steams
Right.
them. Exact same kind of thing. They're not thinking, I'm about to steam these guys. They're thinking, I'm trying to make it better.
Right.
Their intentions, and so it goes in the wrong direction. But I think that happens more than I was telling Pabel, we used to do this. We used to do positive pressure ventilation, and we had a whole class in another jurisdiction. And I said, they were talking about it. They were talking about another state that actually does it for like 30, 45 minutes. And then somebody in the class said, you guys used to do this, right? And I said, yep. And he said, you don't do it anymore, do you? And I said, nope. We didn't like it. We stopped doing it.
Right.
These guys were smart. They knew how many CFMs, a nozzle would push and all this stuff. And I said, I appreciate how smart you are. We aren't that smart. We try it. Either we like it or we don't. And if we don't like it, we don't keep doing it.
We used to do it. So there was a place that I was at that normal practice was always that the PPV was going to end up in the same front door, pushing air into the building. It was normal practice, like 99% of the time, that structure was going to get a PPV on it. And it was more through muscle memory than it was true logic. And even when you'd go there and you'd say, all right, we got a PPV, it's properly placed, conditions are good, every window and door starts getting open to vent. So like Hatch is saying, just because we were doing it doesn't mean we were doing it efficiently, although we were doing it correctly. So then you start looking at it and go, well, that's not really efficient what we're doing right now, but it was normal practice. Put that PPV fan up front. Usually it was coordinated, but there's times where people took that proactive approach and brought it up, had it sitting right there, and they wouldn't even voice up. They just crank it up and start venting that structure. And it was accepted at that time. It was kind of accepted to go, well, if it's at that stage where that needs to happen, do it.
Right.
Today, that same action would be, you can't do that. You didn't coordinate that effort with everybody, but it was expected and it was normal, come to think of it, to put that fan up front.
All right. So where are we on this for Adam?
Nowhere. We don't solve. We don't answer questions.
We confuse. No, I think that, I think what my thought is, kudos to them for sitting down and talking about it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
If the person who put that fan in place and started it is not part of this conversation, my recommendation is get them in the room. Find out the facts of why, not in a defensive way, but
Right.
hey, what was your process that got you to putting that, and what did you think that outcome was going to be? And if you find, let's call it fault, if you find the fault in the system to go, hey, because of that action, this happened, then you just talk about it. Unfortunately, it gets a little bit difficult sometimes to have these conversations because people haven't practiced it truly. So I'll go back to my station. I'm going to have this conversation, but I'm not going to include the crew that I'm talking about. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about they screwed everything up. I say that we start bringing people to the table and let them put their logic on the table. At the end of the day, the incident's already done. You're not going to go back and redo that one, but you do have an opportunity to redo the next one. So the whole thing shouldn't be really trying to execute somebody on what just happened as much as it is going, hey, this next one, all it would have took is a key up in the radio and saying, hey, I got a PPV up front. Are you ready for it? Negative, we got crews inside.
Right.
Or whatever else the outcome may be. But bring that crew into the room and make sure they are part of the discussion. And then if you get the one that says they're going to defend their actions no matter what, they're defending their actions,
That's okay.
that's fine.
Because maybe what that is so much pride is not able to get out of the way in the group, but maybe the seed gets planted either way.
Correct.
But if you don't do what you're doing, if you don't have the conversation, then, and it's just us, we were on the fireground and we're bashing some other crew because they did some stupid shit. We're filling all those gaps with our narrative.
Our narrative, yep. I'm with you on that.
Without them having any opportunity to say, well, here's what I was thinking.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think that's the takeaway.
But you're describing an after action, the hot wash.
Yeah.
And this is what we try to do. And this is the point that we, when there's a mistake, people want to defend it, and oh, I didn't make a mistake. Blah, blah. No, I get it. Your intentions were honorable. I mean, I'm okay with that. But that's the whole point. That's the whole growth and the bad judgment versus good judgment, whatever. That's the whole point of it. That's why we're doing it. You can't lose it. Could you imagine what an after action would be like and nobody made a decision? Everybody just did nothing? So what'd you do? Nothing? Okay. And you? Nothing?
be pretty quick.
It'd be very fast. The house burns down, everybody dies.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point is we want you to make decisions. We want you to move forward. We want you to have good intentions. It's not always going to work out. We get
Want you
it.
to take risks.
Yeah, but we have a society where we don't allow people to be wrong.
Right.
It's not cool to be wrong. You know what I mean? Like we're just not. We don't promote that.
I want to be cool.
Bill, you are cool.
No. I'm on the wrong side of that one.
You're on the wrong side of cool. That's not true. But anyway, I do think we have an environment, or we even create an environment where it's very difficult to come in there and be humble and wrong.
I would agree with that. We can change it, but it's definitely difficult depending on the environment to come in there and be vulnerable enough to go, yeah, I messed that up.
Let me offer. So I love, and Shane and I have talked about this, I love being wrong. I mean, love it.
I don't know if that's true, but I like this way he goes with it.
I do. I get really excited. I mean, it just
happens like once every couple of years.
No. Stroop got me 2 weeks ago or something.
A former guest.
It was exhilarating. And there's a difference between being wrong and making mistakes.
I know what to get you for Christmas now.
Okay.
Pointing out when you're wrong.
There you go.
I'm going to save them all up.
You make a list.
Here's both of them.
Hope you're exhilarated. Yeah.
Making mistakes are when you do something that you didn't intend to do. And that's a mistake, and I don't like mistakes. I don't like mistakes at all. I hate making mistakes. Make them every day, and I hate it. But being wrong is where somebody really has changed your mind about something that you thought you were right about, and somebody presents something and you go, you know what? You are absolutely right. I was completely wrong about that. That's the best feeling. I love that.
All right. So
I've heard that like twice out of Bill in our entire 30-year
That's not true.
relationship.
That's not true.
As far as him being wrong.
Or him saying, you know what? You changed. You're right.
That's not true.
Mistakes
not
versus
true.
being wrong. That's interesting.
That was we were going to do a whole podcast on that where we know.
Yeah, but this kind of
Yeah.
it rolls into this topic because we're back into what was
The
intent.
intent, yeah.
Right.
And intent is the difference between the mistake and being wrong. But, I think wrong is where you're learning. Wrong is where you realize, holy crap.
But the experience is the mistakes too, right?
Sure. So
you're learning there
You're
too.
learning from those, but
You get caught in a pickle when you're wrong.
The enjoyment.
The exhilarating, like he's saying, I'm exhilarated when I'm wrong, but it usually comes with a mistake.
Right. That's what I'm sitting here thinking.
I don't know how to feel right now.
And I was wrong.
Yeah. How do I feel?
I mean, if I'm just
Double down on that.
and what Stroop did, we had been debating this particular issue for
Forever.
weeks. We'd have these huge debates, and nobody in the room's on the same side, and people change sides, and I mean,
This is guideline stuff.
we never get to an end. And at some point, you just go, you know what, we're going to stop talking about this today, and we'll pick it back up later. And it had been going on and on. And Stroop came in the room and saw this detail about it that completely destroyed the issue. And it was as clear as it could be to him. And he just said, this piece of this makes everything that you guys are arguing about null and void.
Man, that's awesome. That's a
And
good
it
feeling.
was.
And he did it so effortlessly and easy, just like bam.
So you guys are going to start wearing shorts?
Shorts
that
and
a
Crocs, right? They make firefighting Crocs.
Yeah, still
They
tough.
do.
But no, I mean, I loved it. I loved
Yeah,
when
you
he
know,
did that.
when somebody can walk in,
Just so,
because we get, and we say this often with documents to go, I'll do 10 documents a day, right? That you're just constantly focused in. And then somebody else looks at it and finds obvious errors. And you're going, how did you do? Well, because you're so uber focused on this, you can't even tell that the spelling's wrong.
You're sending something out and about some event, and somebody's like, you didn't put the time on it.
oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
No, Should've
When
done
somebody
that.
can walk into a room and you're working on guidelines or policies or whatever you're doing, and they walk in with the logic that everybody's missing because it's almost like everybody's so passionate or driven,
Focused,
yeah,
like you said,
focused.
just so-
Somebody walks in and goes, "Hey guys, what about this?" And you're like, "Yep, that just totally closed the door on 1 week worth of debates," and that's awesome. Those opportunities, whenever they present themselves to me, that's like, okay, do that, be that guy, be the one that can sit outside.
Yep.
And even when you're in the room sometimes, to walk off, disappear from the conversation and just look at it from a high view and then come in and go, excuse me, okay, now I see it. Boom, you drop the logic and it's there. Those opportunities to me are awesome when they happen, when I see them happen.
I agree.
Shout out to Stroop for doing that. Good man right there.
Yep.
Well,
Well, shut the door on that one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
I was about to say, I didn't get a hump from that guy.
Oh, you and her up for sorry about that.
No, we appreciate the question.
Yeah, great
I
question.
don't know that we provided any answers, but
Again, we don't.
Well, if it doesn't, he could, next time you're at that,
Yeah, do a follow up.
yeah, or we can actually have him call in with his crew at the table. We'll confuse him a little bit more.
Listen, this is a good opportunity to say that how it's not lost on us how much we appreciate that people listen and are willing to, we would have these conversations regardless. We do it all the time, when we're not recording, and we super appreciate everybody that does take the time to listen and download it, especially to comment back and give us some feedback. It is not lost on us that, it's a pretty special thing. I mean, we talk about it off mic quite a bit.
Yeah, agreed. It's humbling when somebody fires something back that they listen to an episode, because we're a very close group. We have a lot of conversations, recording, non-recording, on the phone, at the house, playing ping pong.
Via text.
So when somebody chimes in and they send us a message, it's humbling that there's people out there actually listening and engage in the conversation. And hopefully the stuff that we talk about helps. It definitely helps us. It helps us to air out all the things that are going on and find some resolve, or just come to the conclusion that we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine
send
too.
us a message and tell us we're wrong. I love it.
Yeah, Bill loves it.
Well, it just opens up other avenues for us to grow, and
Right.
which is great.
All right.
All right.
No, well,
Well,
I don't know how we got stuck on that.
I don't either.
we're done, right?
Yes.
Because I always screw this
Yes.
up. Okay.
Yes.
Bill the volunteers time to clean
totally
up
leaving
the
the shit in, by the way.
Yeah, I can't tell anymore when we're done.
Like anymore. You never
Because-
could.
Good point. Well,
All right.
so I find myself doing this in meetings. In meetings at work,
You say, well?
I go, well. I swear I'm going to have to record it because
I think we do the same thing.
So
I
there-
can totally.
Well,
there's a level, and especially now recording. So with the chief, sometimes he gets just silent and in thought, and I'm like, "Are we done or not?" Right? So instead of doing that, I go, "Well,
see you guys.
it's turning into a thing over there now, where I'm just like, well,
Where
I guess we're done."
I can't wait. So after all of this, our contribution to the fire service
Is
gonna
well?
be well.
How to end the conversation.
In the meeting to go to the next one. Well,
You know what? If that's the contribution that we leave the fire service, I'm perfectly content with that.
Combustible is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to Combustible to make sure you don't miss out on an episode. Follow us on Facebook so we know how many of you listeners there are out there. And you can check us out online at combustiblethepodcast.com. As always, we would like to thank the Golden Dogs and True North Records for letting us use their song Saints at the Gates for our theme music. You can find the Golden Dogs music on any streaming platform. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.